My name is Daniel Thompson, and for 3 years, my family held secret business meetings every Sunday after dinner while I was sent to help with dishes or take the dog for a walk. They thought I was too young, too inexperienced, too naive to understand the family construction empire my grandfather built. Last Sunday, they were discussing selling the company to a competitor for $50 million when my phone rang. My lawyer's voice cut through their heated argument. "Daniel, the stock transfer is complete. You now officially own 51% of Thompson Construction. Congratulations, you're the majority shareholder." The silence that followed as I put the call on speaker was deafening. My family's faces went from confident negotiation to complete horror, as they realized the kid they'd been excluding now controlled the entire company they were trying to sell behind my back. If you're watching this, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story gets absolutely wild. Drop your location in the comments. I want to know where my fellow secret shareholders are watching from. This is about a family who spent years treating me like I didn't belong in the business, not knowing that my dying grandfather had quietly made me the most powerful person in the room. Thompson Construction wasn't just a business. It was a legacy spanning 4 generations. My great-grandfather started with a single hammer and a dream in 1952. My grandfather, Robert Thompson, built it into the largest residential construction company in the tri-state area, worth over $100 million. The family hierarchy was crystal clear. My father James was the CEO and heir apparent. My uncle Michael ran operations. My aunt Sarah handled finances. And my older brother Marcus was being groomed as the next generation leader. Then there was me. At 24, I was the youngest Thompson by 8 years, treated more like a nephew than a legitimate family member. While Marcus learned project management and client relations, I was relegated to manual labor, carrying supplies, cleaning job sites, and doing whatever grunt work nobody else wanted. "Daniel needs to learn the business from the ground up," my father would say dismissively. "He's not ready for real responsibility." The exclusion was systematic and humiliating. Family business meetings happened without me. Strategic decisions were made in conversations I wasn't invited to join. When clients visited, I was introduced as Robert's grandson, who helps out around the sites. "The boy has potential," my grandfather would say diplomatically, "but he needs more seasoning before he can contribute meaningfully." What hurt most was watching Marcus, only 2 years older, being treated as the golden child while I was seen as the family afterthought. He got the corner office, the company car, the respect. I got a hard hat and a shovel. What my family didn't know is that my grandfather Robert had been secretly mentoring me for years. While they saw our conversations as polite small talk, he was actually teaching me the deeper aspects of business strategy, financial planning, and long-term vision. "Daniel," he told me during one of our private walks around the construction sites, "running a business isn't about who talks the loudest in meetings. It's about understanding every detail, every relationship, every number." He taught me to read financial statements, understand market trends, and most importantly, recognize the difference between short-term profits and long-term value. While my family focused on quarterly earnings, Grandpa was thinking decades ahead. "Your father and uncle are good at what they do," he confided, "but they think like employees, not owners. They see problems to solve today, not opportunities to build for tomorrow." These conversations always happened away from the family, during early morning site visits, late evening walks, or quiet moments in his study while everyone else watched TV. To them, we were just grandfather and grandson spending time together. The real education came when he started showing me the company's true financial picture. Thompson Construction wasn't just profitable. It was sitting on assets worth far more than anyone realized. Land acquisitions, development rights, and strategic partnerships that could transform the company from a regional contractor into a major real estate development firm. "The family sees what we build," he said, pointing to a housing development we just completed. "But they don't see what we could build." That's the difference between workers and visionaries. Every Sunday after family dinner, the same ritual played out. The dishes would be cleared, and my father would casually say, "Daniel, why don't you help your grandmother in the kitchen while we discuss some business matters?" Or, "Daniel, could you take Rex for his evening walk? We need to go over some boring paperwork." Or, "Daniel, your grandfather looks tired. Maybe you could drive him home while we finish up here." The exclusion was always polite, always reasonable, always designed to make me feel like I was being helpful rather than deliberately sidelined. But I knew exactly what was happening. They were making decisions about the company's future without the one person they considered irrelevant. Through overheard conversations and casual comments, I pieced together their discussions. They were considering expansion into commercial construction, debating whether to take on debt for new equipment, and most concerning, entertaining offers from competitors who wanted to acquire Thompson Construction. We could sell to Meridian Construction for $45 million, I heard my Uncle Michael say one evening as I was supposedly getting my coat. Split 4 ways, that's life-changing money for everyone. $45 million seems low, my Aunt Sarah replied. The company's worth at least $60 million based on our assets and contracts. But $45 million is guaranteed, my father interjected. And it means we don't have to worry about the next recession or market downturn. These conversations always ended abruptly when I returned from my assigned task, replaced by casual small talk about sports or weather. The message was clear. The real business happened when I wasn't around. 6 months ago, my grandfather's health began declining rapidly. What started as occasional fatigue became frequent doctor visits, then regular treatments, then hushed conversations about getting his affairs in order. The family rallied around him, but their concern seemed more focused on business continuity than his well-being. I overheard my father and uncle discussing succession planning and ensuring smooth leadership transition. "Dad's been running this company for 50 years, my father said during one of their private conversations. "We need to make sure everything transfers properly when the time comes." But my grandfather had different plans. During what I thought was just another casual visit to his house, he pulled out a thick folder of legal documents. "Daniel, I need to tell you something that's going to change your life," he said, his voice serious in a way I'd never heard before. "I've been watching this family for years, and I've realized something important. They're good at running the business day to day, but they don't understand its true potential." He opened the folder to reveal stock certificates, legal agreements, and financial documents I didn't immediately understand. Your father, uncle, and aunt each think they own 25% of Thompson Construction. They believe the remaining 25% is mine to distribute in my will. But they're wrong. My heart started racing as he continued. "I've been quietly transferring my shares to you over the past 2 years. Small amounts, structured as gifts to avoid taxes and attention. As of today, you own 49% of Thompson Construction." I stared at the documents, unable to process what he was telling me. "And when I die, my remaining 2% transfers to you automatically. You'll own 51%, controlling interest in the entire company." "Why?" "Was?" All I could manage to ask. My grandfather smiled sadly. "Because you're the only one who sees what I see. Your father wants to sell the company for quick money. Your uncle wants to keep doing the same small projects forever. Your aunt only cares about quarterly profits." He pulled out a detailed business plan I'd never seen before. "But you understand that Thompson Construction could become Thompson Development. We have the land, the relationships, the capital to build entire communities, not just individual houses. We could be worth 500 million in 10 years, not 50 million today. The plan was breathtaking in its scope and vision. Mixed-use developments, sustainable housing projects, commercial real estate ventures, and would transform the company from a regional contractor into a major player in urban development. This is your inheritance, Daniel. Not just the money, but the responsibility to build something greater than what came before. 2 weeks later, my grandfather passed away peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was beautiful, filled with family, friends, and business associates who shared stories about his generosity and vision. But during the reading of his will, the family received a shock. Instead of the expected distribution of his business shares, the lawyer announced that Robert Thompson's remaining stake in the company had been transferred to me months before his death as part of a succession planning strategy. What does that mean exactly? My father asked, clearly confused. It means Daniel now owns 51% of Thompson Construction. The lawyer replied matter-of-factly. The room erupted in confused questions and demands for explanation. But the lawyer simply handed me a sealed envelope marked for Daniel to be opened when you're ready. For 3 months after the funeral, my family acted like the lawyer's announcement was some kind of administrative error that would be corrected once the estate was properly settled. They continued excluding me from business decisions, continued treating me like the family grunt worker, continued holding their secret Sunday meetings. Don't worry about the legal stuff, my father told me dismissively. Lawyers always make things sound more complicated than they are. Once we sort out Grandpa's paperwork, everything will go back to normal. But I had been quietly meeting with my own lawyer, confirming that the stock transfers were legitimate, legal, and irreversible. I now controlled the majority of Thompson Construction, even though my family had no idea. The sealed envelope from my grandfather contained detailed instructions for when and how to reveal my ownership stake. Wait until they try to make a decision that goes against the company's long-term interests, he had written. Then show them who really has the power to decide. That moment came last Sunday. I arrived for family dinner as usual, expecting the typical routine of being excluded from the post-meal business discussion. But this time, I could sense something different in the air. My father, uncle, and aunt kept exchanging meaningful glances throughout dinner, and Marcus seemed unusually excited about something. After dessert, the familiar dismissal came. Daniel, could you help clear the dishes while we discuss some paperwork? But instead of leaving, I lingered in the kitchen, listening to their conversation through the thin wall between the dining room and kitchen. Meridian Construction increased their offer to 50 million, my father announced. Cash deal, closing in 30 days. 50 million split 4 ways is 12.5 million each. My Aunt Sarah calculated aloud. That's enough to retire comfortably and never worry about construction schedules or weather delays again. Plus, Meridian wants to keep the Thompson name and hire us as consultants, my Uncle Michael added. We get the money and keep working if we want to. I think we should take it, Marcus said eagerly. 50 million is more money than any of us ever dreamed of. That's when I knew it was time. I walked back into the dining room carrying a coffee pot, pretending to offer refills while they continued their discussion. The paperwork is already drawn up, my father was saying. We just need to sign the sale agreement, and that's when my phone rang. My lawyer, right on schedule as we had planned. Excuse me, I said, answering the call. This might be important. Daniel, my lawyer's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. The stock transfer documentation is complete. You now officially own 51% of Thompson Construction. Congratulations, you're the majority shareholder and controlling owner of the company. The room went silent. 4 faces turned toward me with expressions ranging from confusion to horror. I'm sorry, what? My father stammered. I put the call on speaker. Could you repeat that for my family, please? Certainly. Daniel Thompson now owns 51% of Thompson Construction, making him the majority shareholder with controlling interest in all business decisions. The transfer was completed according to Robert Thompson's estate planning documents, which were executed. Over the past 2 years, my Uncle Michael was the first to find his voice. That's impossible. Dad would have told us if he was giving Daniel control of the company. Actually, I said, pulling out the folder of documents my grandfather had given me, he did tell someone. He told me. I spread the stock certificates and legal papers across the dining room table, where they had been discussing selling my company without my knowledge or consent. Grandpa spent 2 years quietly transferring his shares to me because he knew you would try to sell the company for quick money instead of building it into something greater. My father's face was turning red. This is ridiculous. You're 24 years old. You don't know anything about running a business. I know enough to understand that $50 million is a terrible price for a company worth at least $100 million in assets alone, I replied calmly. And I know enough to recognize that Grandpa's development plans could make this company worth $500 million in 10 years. I pulled out my grandfather's detailed business plan and placed it on the table. While you were excluding me from meetings, Grandpa was teaching me about vision, strategy, and long-term value creation. While you were treating me like hired help, he was preparing me to lead this company into the future. The silence that followed was deafening. My family stared at the documents spread across the table, slowly realizing that everything they thought they knew about the company's ownership structure was wrong. Marcus was the first to speak. So you can block the sale? I don't need to block anything, I replied. I am the majority owner. I decide whether this company gets sold, and to whom, and for how much. And I'm telling you right now, Thompson Construction is not for sale. My Aunt Sarah looked like she was going to be sick, but the $50 million, we were counting on that money. You were counting on money from selling something that wasn't yours to sell, I said firmly. You own 49% combined. I own 51%. That means I control this company. My father stood up abruptly, his face flushed with anger. This is insane. Dad couldn't have done this without telling us. There has to be some mistake. I pulled out the sealed letter my grandfather had left for me and read his words aloud. If you're reading this to the family, it means they've tried to make a short-sighted decision that would destroy everything we've built. James, Michael, Sarah, I love you all, but you see Thompson Construction as a job, not a legacy. Daniel sees what I see, the potential to build something that will matter for generations. The room was completely silent now. You excluded him from meetings because you thought he wasn't ready. But I was teaching him everything he needed to know. You treated him like an employee because you forgot that ownership isn't about age or experience. It's about vision and commitment to the future. I folded the letter and looked at each of them. Grandpa didn't give me this company to hurt you. He gave it to me to save it from being sold for a fraction of its true value. My uncle, Michael, finally found his voice. So what happens now? You fire us all and run the company yourself? No, I said, surprising them. Now we work together to build what Grandpa envisioned. But we do it my way, with my vision, following my decisions. Because that's what majority ownership means. The weeks following my revelation were tense and awkward. My family struggled to adjust to the new reality that the kid they'd been dismissing was now their boss. But gradually, they began to understand that I wasn't interested in revenge or humiliation. I was interested in building something extraordinary. My first decision as majority owner was to reject the Meridian construction offer and instead pursue my grandfather's development strategy. We would transform Thompson Construction into Thompson Development, focusing on large-scale residential and commercial projects that would generate long-term value. This is risky, my father warned during our first official board meeting where I sat at the head of the table. Development projects take years to complete and require massive upfront investment. Everything worthwhile is risky, I replied. But Grandpa left us with the resources, relationships, and expertise to succeed. We just need the courage to think bigger than we ever have before. The transformation wasn't easy. My Uncle Michael struggled with taking direction from someone he'd watched grow up. My Aunt Sarah questioned every financial decision that didn't prioritize immediate profits. Marcus felt displaced as the former heir apparent who now reported to his younger brother. But slowly, they began to see results. Our first mixed-use development project attracted investors and buyers beyond our wildest expectations. Property values in our target areas increased dramatically. Other developers started approaching us for partnerships and joint ventures. I have to admit, my father said during one of our monthly reviews, your approach is working better than I expected. Grandpa's approach, I corrected. I'm just implementing his vision. The most difficult adjustment was learning to include them in decisions while maintaining final authority. I instituted weekly strategy meetings where everyone could voice opinions and concerns, but made it clear that ultimate decisions rested with me as majority owner. This is how it should have been all along, I told them during one particularly productive meeting. Everyone's expertise matters, but someone has to have the final say. Grandpa chose me for that role 2 years after taking control of Thompson Construction. The results spoke for themselves. We had completed 3 major development projects with 2 more in progress. The company's valuation had grown from $50 million to over $200 million, and we were being courted by investors who wanted to fund our expansion into new markets. The family dynamics had transformed completely. My father, uncle, and aunt now came to me with ideas and proposals instead of making decisions without my input. Marcus had found his niche in project management and was thriving under my leadership rather than competing with me for succession. I owe you an apology, my father said during one of our private conversations. We treated you like you didn't belong when you were the one Dad was preparing to lead us. You don't need to apologize for protecting what you thought was yours, I replied. You just needed to understand that Grandpa was thinking beyond what any of us could see. The vindication came when Meridian Construction, the company that had offered to buy us for $50 million, approached us again with a new proposal, a partnership deal that valued Thompson Development at $300 million and offered us the opportunity to expand nationwide. $300 million, my Aunt Sarah said in amazement during the board meeting where we reviewed the offer. 6 times what they offered 2 years ago. And we're not selling, I announced. We're going to build this company into something worth $1 billion, just like Grandpa envisioned. The transformation wasn't just financial, it was personal. My family had learned to see me not as the kid who needed to be excluded from important conversations, but as the leader who could guide them to success they never imagined possible. Your grandfather would be so proud, my father said, as we stood on the site of our latest development project, watching construction crews build what would become a 500-unit residential complex with retail and office space. He knew this would happen, I replied. That's why he gave me the tools to make it possible. The most satisfying moment came during our annual family dinner, exactly 3 years after that first explosive revelation. Instead of being sent away during business discussions, I was leading them. To Grandpa, I said, raising my glass, who saw potential where others saw problems, and who trusted the right person to carry his vision forward. As we toasted, I looked around the table at my family, no longer the people who excluded me, but the team that helped me build something extraordinary. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't being included in the conversation. It's being given the power to lead it. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who should have believed in you most? Sometimes the person who sees your potential isn't the one you expect. And sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's the opportunity to prove everyone wrong. Drop your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about turning exclusion into empowerment. Remember, being left out of the room doesn't mean you don't belong there. Sometimes it just means you're meant to own the building.